Democrats should not have a problem saying America's the greatest country in the world. We're never perfect, but we're always striving to be better, and we're proud of our country.
The people of the United States have not failed. They want direct, vigorous action.
What I wanted to start with was, you don't know this, but he drove in a green Jeep Wrangler. It's a pretty cool Jeep.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love a Jeep Wrangler.
And actually, I heard you speak at the DEC, and you mentioned that red, white, and blue is like a part of what you want to claim back. And I feel like there's kind of a classical patriotism that's in you. And then I noticed what kind of looks like an army Jeep. Like, right? It literally kind of feels, you know, like an army Jeep.
Yeah.
I guess I'm wondering, am I reading you right? Is there some sort of a patriotic streak behind you? Why the red, white, and blue?
Yeah, well, you know, first thing is that this is a 6-week campaign. This was engineered by the Republicans, announced on Thanksgiving Eve that there would be this special election. So, you know, neither candidates had the opportunity to manufacture a background or anything like that. You know, we drive Jeeps in our family. They're great cars for Florida, and they're great cars if you have teen drivers because, you know, and invariably they're going to ding it, and you can just unscrew the fender and get a new one. So, but Jeeps definitely fit into the Florida lifestyle. In terms of patriotism, yeah, that actually is calculated, to be honest. In that, you know, trying to differentiate ourselves, a lot of candidates have been using just different color yard signs. And I think that the Trump folks and Republican folks out there kind of feel like they own the red, white, and blue, and they fly it proudly.
I agree.
And,
I agree with that.
And honestly, we have by default kind of given it to them. And where if you drive by a house that's flying an American flag, you kind of assume that they're Republicans. And so, you know, all my material, look, when I ran 6 years ago, all my things were red, white, and blue, all my campaign materials. And when I ran this year, there was no doubt about it. It's red, white, and blue. And Democrats are as patriotic as Republicans, and we're just somehow more bashful about showing it. I think that there's something a little bit, we're inhibited about showing our patriotism.
We are absolutely patriotic people. We love this country.
Well, and Democrats have a more complicated outlook, I think, and a more nuanced outlook. I mean, for example, if you think about it, you know, at different eras, obviously the Democrats and the left have been, don't trust the government. I mean, certainly look back at the Vietnam era and it was, don't trust the government. And then in the last couple of years, the government came around and wanted to give everybody shots of a brand new vaccine. And everybody was like, oh, definitely trust the government. And so, you know, as a party, there are different eras where we, you know, where we have different views about America and about our government. And so they're nuanced and they're complicated. And I think that, but I think that Democrats should not have a problem saying America's the greatest country in the world. We're never perfect, but we're always striving to be better. And we're proud of our country. And that's what my campaign is about. In this district where we're running, look, it's not a hard puzzle to figure out. There was just an election in November. This is a 30-70 district. It's 30% Democrats, 70% ain't Democrats.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's not a D next to your name, you're not a Democrat. People who are no party affiliates, NPAs, independents, they're not Democrats. And obviously Republicans aren't Democrats. So, you know, my philosophy, and I differ from Josh, and we go back and forth on this in a friendly way, is that we're not going to turn this place. We're not going to flip this place in 2 months. In this general election, we're not going to turn a blue wave is not coming that is going to sweep this over, and we're not going to have 100% Democratic turnout. That's just impossible. So really what I think is best for this district to try and win this seat is to run a moderate Democrat, and I'm a moderate Democrat, and to try and reach people where they are. I have no problem with the left. I have no problem with AOC. I think she's a brilliant politician and one of the great young political minds in this country.
No doubt.
But I think she is right for her district. which is New York City.
Mm.
And I think I'm right for our district, which is a 30-70 district in Florida.
That's an interesting argument because, you know, there's a lot of progressive ideas, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you've got, like, I literally wanted...
Yeah, off your website, you know, your
Oh,
father...
by the way, we love all of this stuff that we're about to read to you.
Great.
So
Yeah, I love this. So your father was in a union. You helped create a union in college for, what was it? You remember you read it again?
oh yeah, helped to create a union in
helped create a
college.
union in
But we'll
college.
talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just stay here.
You open kind of in your campaign speech, if you will, too many people are 1 or 2 missed paychecks away from financial ruin in the richest country in the world, pointing out that the economy has left a lot of people behind, the burdens of student debt, the system is rigged, the middle class is under attack. I read those and I hear progressive, personally. I just want to see where you're at in terms of moderate versus progressive and kind of where you fall.
Sure, and
when I read that, yeah.
And it is a nuanced argument.
Of course.
And a nuanced difference between me and Josh, my opponent. You know, I am a traditional Democrat. I'm a Clinton Democrat, if you will.
Yeah.
What used to be a Kennedy Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate to be a White House intern for President Clinton. And actually,
Cool, by the
That's
way.
pretty cool, yeah.
yeah, it was very cool during the impeachment. I actually,
But after Monica Lewinsky,
yes, I took.
so for anybody that asked.
I literally took that chair. So
No kidding.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, wild.
I was a West Wing chief of staff intern during the impeachment. It was fascinating, amazing opportunity.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
How old were you? Would that have been?
I was in law school, so I was in my late 20s,
Oh.
mid-late 20s.
How did you get that
Yeah.
gig? Like, how does a person get a gig like that?
You write a good essay, you know, you
Oh,
apply like
okay.
anything else. But
Okay.
but what is tough about it is, you know, you have to get your own housing in Washington D.C. and it's
yeah.
really hard for it's an expensive city, and that's a hard task for people to do. And you know, it's really important if there are any young Democrats listening. These internships are so important. And back in my day, everything was an unpaid internship. Hopefully, that's changing a bit.
I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Like,
But
I'm sure it was unpaid.
Supreme Court internships, Washington D.C. internships, they will pay dividends throughout the rest of your life. And so it's really something if you're in high school to really, or going into college to really try and aspire to.
Yeah.
Because if you can get on that big stage early, then that's kind of the playing field that you play on.
Yeah.
That's the playground that you run around in. And there's certainly nothing wrong with going to Tallahassee and doing internships. There's nothing wrong with going to your local representative and interning there if you can find a Democratic representative
Yeah, if you can find one.
to intern with.
Yeah.
But going back to your question, what's different is that, look, we ran great candidates. Hillary Clinton, an amazing candidate, an amazingly qualified candidate, probably one of the most qualified candidates to run for office. Kamala Harris, likewise, an amazing candidate and amazingly qualified. This is a woman who's the attorney general of one of our biggest state, which is probably one of the world's biggest economies. Then she's a senator from that state. And then she's the sitting vice president of the United States. Incredibly accomplished woman.
Yep.
And to be honest, ran a very good campaign in a short period of time and got walloped. And when a great candidate gets walloped, that tells me one thing. It tells me that the public ain't buying what we're selling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of distractors, and everybody who has an agenda will say that she lost because of their particular agenda item. There's racism in this country. I don't think America is a racist country. Kamala Harris did not lose because of her ethnicity. She did not lose because she was a woman. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, and she's a woman.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't think that anything happened in the last 6 years that made people hate women, that they wouldn't vote for one when they voted for one 6 years ago. So 8 years ago. So Kamala Harris lost because the public wasn't buying what she was selling. And, I looked at this, getting into this race, as an opportunity to show Democrats around the country in the upcoming midterm elections how we could run to try and, sort of be you've heard of a test case. This is like a test race.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean I'm not serious about winning, but that we've got to do something different in order to win. I think some of that is that we have been telling people as a party what the solutions are. We've been telling them that this is the way that we need to be. And frankly, if you're not on board, there's something wrong with you. You know, you're against progress.
Yeah.
And you're against the right way to live and the right beliefs to have.
Yeah.
And I think that browbeating the electorate is not winning them to our side. I think that we need to meet voters where they are. And I think that that is incrementalism without capitulation. It's compromise without capitulation. I am not willing to capitulate on women's rights and women's health rights and the rights of teen girls. I am not willing to capitulate on LGBTQ rights.
Of course.
It's not about that, but we are not in control of the presidency. We are not in control of the House, and we are not in control of the Senate. So the idea that either of us, Josh or myself, are going to show up in Washington on day one and that we are going to bring some dramatic change, it's not going to happen.
Right.
The best we can do is to listen to the people in our district and hear what they have to say and bring their issues to Washington. And in this district, this strange, bizarre gerrymandered district, there are some issues that unite us.
You're exactly right. If you or Josh were to win, what can you do on day one as a lone man in a big room with a lot of
freshmen,
crazy legislators in it? You know what I mean? It's
Well, we tell
it's something that you can get done while you're there. Hopefully. I mean, it might just be trying to obstruct some agendas that I would imagine that may be coming down the line, at least in the first 2 years.
I'll give you a direct example, which is that the Trump tax cuts.
Okay, yeah,
we do not. The president puts out a budget. Okay, we don't control that, and the House and the Senate vote on that budget, and we ain't going to win those votes. So Trump's tax cuts are coming through. Okay, whether you like them or not. So I could sit here and I could rail against how unfair this tax is. It's not going to make a darn bit of difference. However, in his tax bill, okay, there is there's a tax credit for LLCs, for people who are landscapers, for people who have cleaning businesses, right? There's a small business tax credit there. Now, that is something that Democrats should be compromising, if you will, pushing Republicans on to try and get for the people who are our constituents. It goes against our tax policy.
But it's passable, though.
But it's passable. And that's the type of stuff that we need to do. Now, conversely, to compare that to my opponent, Josh the other day said something very admirable, but he said, look, if I'm elected, I will I believe it was day one, but he said he said no federal income tax for teachers. Okay. Now that could be admirable. That could be wonderful if you're a teacher, maybe not so if you're a firefighter, but I can't win in this district going around telling people that I'm giving away no income tax to people, and I have no power to do that. So I just feel like running honestly, and I'm not saying that he's being dishonest, but for me, my truth, which is going to people in the district and saying, look, I can try and help and get your LLC a bigger tax credit. Kamala Harris had a great idea of no tax increases for families jointly who made $400,000.
Yeah.
Now, across the country, maybe not in our district in Florida, but across the country, two people making that type of money in Boston, New York, or LA or San Francisco would be upper middle class or middle class. And I fully support that. And if that is something that we could get into Trump's tax bill, that would be into his tax cutting bill, that would be something that's positive. And that's how we can work with the other side. But I can't go out there and promise people all kinds of great and wonderful things that aren't going to come true.
How do you sell that, or how do you get people then excited about something? I mean, this is a genuine question. Maybe a lot of Trump voters went out and voted because Trump scared the hell out of them, right? They're coming across the border and this and that and things, they. Yeah. So I feel like on, the Dem side, we don't use a tactic like that to scare people out to the polls. We use some sort of inspirational or aspirational or hopeful message to try to draw people to the polls. Well, number one. Am I reading that right? I mean, I'm not in this as much as you are, so tell me.
Well, I think you're picking up on something, which is, I am, again, I've used the word nuance 3 times now, so I've got to get one of those thesaurus calendars so I find some new words.
Yeah.
But,
Ding, a little
ding, right?
But yeah, I'm giving in this primer, I'm giving people a big ask. I'm saying, look, the Republicans have been eating our lunch. Okay, they've been beating us up on the playground. They've been eating our lunch. Mitch McConnell out-strategized us with the Supreme Court. I mean, he pantsed us on the Supreme Court. Okay, and in gerrymandering. Around the country, the Republicans have pantsed us. They have out-strategized us. And they've even gone down to local school boards and politicizing local school board races and things like that. Races that were never politicized before, they have politicized. The Republicans have out-strategized us like crazy. My appeal to Democrats in this primary is vote strategically. Let's think strategically for once in our lives. This is a 70-30 district. It's not turning blue. It's not turning progressive in 72 days from today, which is when the special election is. It's not going to turn blue. And we're not flipping a 30-70 district the other way around. So think strategically.
Yeah.
Who is a candidate? What are the values? What is the platform? That the people that you're in Publix with, the people who you're at Little League games with, that they could vote for? Because we've been given a gift. Josh and I and the people of this district, we have been given likely a Republican candidate, the presumptive Republican candidate, Randy Fine, is a traveling clown show. He is somebody he is somebody who's going to be, he's an embarrassment, and he's somebody who's going to be very hard for people to vote for people to stomach. And he's a carpetbagger. He's not from this district. I live in the district. Okay. I think that people in this district care enough about local issues that they will elect somebody from the district, somebody who knows this district, somebody who has moderate views, and somebody whose platform is, I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to hear you, and I'm going to go to Washington, I'm going to bring home the bacon for you, for this district, for what's important to you.
That brings up something that I was curious about. As you've been doing the campaigning you've been doing so far, what are you hearing from, I guess, people on the ground, whether that be the Democrats or the NPAs or the even Republicans that you might be speaking to? What are they?
That's a good question.
What's the head of the consensus that you're feeling from people?
Well, it's funny, and it's something that Josh and I have both heard, and we've remarked on, which is huge dissatisfaction with Tallahassee.
Okay.
Now, we're not running for Tallahassee. But wow, people are dissattesfied with Tallahassee.
Interesting. Okay.
Interesting.
Really dissatisfied with the state issues, which are, education. And insurance,
of course,
and utilities, and land use. I mean, those are generally local issues, state issues, and people, they definitely want to talk to us about those issues. And, I think that
even though you wouldn't necessarily have any control in a direct way over that stuff when you go to Washington.
Well, funny that, there are federal responses to those issues. For example, the federal flood insurance program. Flood insurance and insurance is something that's on everybody's minds here in Florida. And, generally insurance is a state-by-state issue. But the flood insurance program is something that people are having a really hard time with, getting with premiums and with getting coverage written and getting paid on claims. And it's a program that, kind of like Social Security, is always teetering on the brink in Washington. So, we need to realize that national flood insurance is not a political football. It's something that Republicans and Democrats alike need in these times, and they need it in Asheville, North Carolina, as much as they need it here in Florida. So certainly, fully funding federal flood insurance is important. The state-by-state insurance rubric does not work. Because insurance companies are deciding on a state-by-state basis to pull out of covering different states. For example, USAA, you can't get USAA homeowners insurance in Florida anymore. They won't write here. And so... and
they're making enough money elsewhere, by the way, so they can just turn it off.
Yes, you just saw what bank and insurance profits were just last week, what was announced. So we need to federalize insurance so that these risks are spread across the nation. You've got California wildfires, you've got massive flooding in the Carolinas, and you've got hurricanes here. And to allow state by state insurance commissioners, which are very politicized to be able to enforce and police these national insurance companies. It's just not happening. So federal insurance reform, federal flood insurance reform, and then the land use issues here. I mean, we have our well water. I have well water, and well water in the state is getting polluted from underneath, from salt water coming up through our water tables. And obviously we have issues with the power going out every time there's a windstorm.
Yeah.
Right. And our coast not being hardened and building in sensitive areas. And these are land use issues that usually you deal with locally, but the power imbalance is so great between these developers with their $85 million checks and these local volunteer zoning boards that we need help on a federal level with all these coastal issues and with infrastructure improvement for our power grid and our water systems, et cetera.
So let's go back, though. Let's rewind back to the first point, insurance.
Yeah.
What's the public think of?
The public hates insurance companies, and the public hates the way the insurance system is working, and the public is feels.
So they're on board with a national flood.
I don't think the public is is aware of any proposed legislation. There isn't any right now.
But there should be then.
But there should be.
Yeah.
Got it. These are situations where the federal government can bring economies of scale to us and can bring enforcement to an industry that needs it. I mean, our banks are regulated federally, and our insurance companies need to be regulated federally. If you look at California, for example, I think I read the other day that their insurer of last resort has $344 million in reserves for wildfires. I mean, you're talking about a $20 billion loss, right? And their state insurer has $300 million.
Yeah.
Citizens here, the insurer of last resort here in Florida, where insurance is forced place, I mean, they're not fully funded for what happens when we have hurricane losses. And this is, homes are people's everything.
Yeah.
It is people's everything.
I feel like that would speak to people. I mean, even though legislation may not exist, but if you've got it in your mind and heart I'm ready to go to Washington to start to talk about this and to start to try to create some interest in Washington for some sort of a national flood insurance thing. Isn't there a state one? There's like some sort of a backup like state insurance thing.
Yeah.
But it's not really working all that well though, right?
Yeah, it is two different issues there.
Okay.
Federal insurance is flood insurance is federal, the federal flood insurance program, and and the flood premiums, while they're rising, are generally affordable. It's the state by state insurance premiums, the hurricane and the wind damage and the rain damage and the exclusions that,
right.
If your roof is ripped off, but the house is damaged by rain, well, then that's not covered by your wind coverage.
Yeah.
Or if it's flooded, but it's flooded from rainwater, then it's not covered by flooding. That's really wind, So, the insurance companies have gamed us. They have found how to not pay. And that's what they do for a living, is not pay claims.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary for a lot of people. I mean, you lose your house and that's it. It's gone. You don't have a couple $100,000 to rebuild it again. You don't have, that was your asset and it's gone.
Particularly with two big hurricanes hitting the same spot a month apart.
Yeah.
And everybody in this district knows that roads flood that never flooded before. And they're flooding in light rains. I mean, we're starting to have, as many orange cones as palm trees. And and barriers shutting off roads. So it's when you see the signs that say road closed, after storm, and that the town or the city owns a bunch of those signs, then that something's going on.
Yeah, there's a problem.
Is that a coastal thing more than it is inland? I feel like, I don't know, maybe we're in a little bit of a highland area here, so it may not be affecting us in a direct way. But what do you think?
I mean. It's interesting what's coastal, because so much of this district, the interior, the central part of this is coastal when you look at the streams and the springs and the rivers
at
and
sea level kind of thing.
Yeah.
So Walaka got killed in the storm, and they're 40 miles inland, but they're in the St. Johns River estuary, so in the flood zone. So it's something that's affecting across this 6th district, which again is this oddly manufactured district of 6 different counties.
Yeah.
And parts of I think it's parts of 6 counties,
Yeah.
whole of 2 counties, parts of 4 counties.
Yeah.
So it's really an interesting gerrymandered collective of counties and parts. Without, by the way, I'm sorry,
No,
without a clear geographic center, and really
Right.
outside of media influence, because it's really outside of Orlando's media influence. It's outside of Jacksonville's media influence. So this race for both parties, for Republicans and Democrats, totally, it's been underserved by the media. Very little media coverage.
Does that help a Dem? If a Dem is really trying to win this thing, is that helpful to a Dem that the Republicans aren't reminded that there's an election going on? I don't know. I mean, is that one way to look at it?
It's a way to look at it, but it's not.
Okay.
It's not an accurate way to look at it.
Okay, good.
Because it's it reinforces the incumbency. I mean, it a lack of an engaged press and engaged media helps the incumbents. And so the Republicans are certainly not complaining about it. And for candidates like Josh and myself, it's really hard to get traction in the, press is free. And so for, Democrats like us in a primary, me and Josh, we have to pay for everything that we get. But with the exception of this is non-paid. We are not not paid for this. This is a free service from the free press, thankfully. But yeah, I mean, you rely upon media coverage to get the word out to people. Nobody knows there's a primary starting on Saturday.
Yeah.
Nobody knows that. And it does the public a disservice. St. Augustine Register hasn't written an article. Local newspapers are not going to endorse anybody from either side in these primaries. And it's in an untraditional time of year. It's in January. And we as candidates, we don't even know who's here. We know who's here in November to vote. But for us, say we have to mail postcards to people, we don't know who's on a cruise for the month of January.
Yeah.
We don't know who winters up north or goes skiing, and they only are here during the warmer months. So it really makes it hard to campaign, and it makes it hard for the public to know, and the Republicans love it. They.
I mean, you're making an argument though for you having to make a ton of noise then to try to kind of stir up some energy. You know what I mean? I mean, is there a kind of a specific plan on that? Or is that something you're going to kind of evolve? I mean, although I guess we're running out of time, aren't we? We're only a couple of weeks away from a vote here. So
yeah, we're 12 days away from the election being over.
Yeah.
So it's hard to make noise.
Yeah.
You have to make noise. You try and make noise, but it's hard to make noise in a vacuum. And it's hard to get momentum. Remember, colleges have been out of, kids have been home. Yeah. They haven't even been here until this week. So you're not able to really energize those votes. And also, most of those kids are not registered to vote in Florida, and they're not registered to vote in this district in Florida. They might be from Miami, they might be from Orlando if they're going to, whether it's going to Flagler College or whether it's going to Daytona State or going to Bethune-Cookman or Stetson. So, you don't have a lot of energy coming from college students here. We've done, great Young Democrat events, and the Young Democrats are great and organized, but they go from age 30 to age 13.
Right.
So again, this was planned by the Republicans to be done over the holidays at a very difficult time of year with a very short runway, to preserve the incumbency.
I guess he probably did this before when he was elected the first time, and he would have extracted some people out of some districts. But, the timing is always going to be odd, I guess, for a presidential extraction of a person out of a district. It's always going to be in January, and an election just happened all the time. So, but this time it happened to us.
Well, for example, he picked Elise Stefanik, a congresswoman from New York, to go into his administration.
Right.
But there's a Democratic governor of New York. So she has said, I don't know when we're going to get around to having an election for that seat.
Gotcha.
Because she doesn't want to send another Republican to Washington.
I gotcha. So that's just the governor-controlled thing on how. No, that's right, because Ron DeSantis did do it before. So
yeah. So politics is about playing games and playing your advantage, and we understand that.
Okay.
But this is definitely not done to our advantage. I'll tell you, when I ran, I was the Democratic nominee for Congress in 2018 in the 4th district, some of which is now,
there any overlap?
Yes. It doesn't technically overlap because you don't have overlap, but in 2022 they moved the district line, so part of what was in St. Augustine that was in the 4th is now in the 6th. But so I ran for the northern part of St. Augustine, Duval County, and Nassau County. And when I was a candidate, it was an 11-month race. I made it all the way through November, and I was vetted and poked and prodded and went through everything. The Chamber of Commerce in Duval County, Republican organization, leading organization, they refused to have a debate for U.S. Congress. They refused to have a debate. They just wouldn't do it. And UNF, their polling institute, polled all the races and refused to poll this congressional race because they didn't want to anger their congressman and lose funding. I had an environmental group. I don't want to call them out, but I had an environmental group that met with me and loved me and thought that I stood for everything they stood for. But they said, you know what? The Republican congressman actually doesn't hate us. And if we support you, then he'll have a reason to hate us. And so even though he is advocating fracking and drilling for oil off the coast of Florida, we're going to support him. And that's what you get when you have one party in charge for decades, where there just is a status quo. Then people are more comfortable with the status quo than trying to upset the status quo. And I will tell you one thing about Josh, my opponent. He wants to upset the status quo for sure. And I want to win a race. So we are hoping that we can flip this district.
I mean, there's a clear distinction.
Yeah.
I mean, that's for sure. There's definitely a clear distinction between Josh's approach and yours. And I guess it would be up to, the vote. I mean, just like you say, it's up to the voters to decide what feels best, to them. Back in that race in 2018, though, that was the same race that Andrew Gillum was in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was an awfully energetic time within the party. Then in this state, a lot of attention, et cetera. So,
and he was, I got to campaign with him a number of times.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
He was a magnetic, dynamic, fantastic candidate. And I'll tell you what the politicized U.S. Attorney's Office did to him with those prosecutions on him. They hounded that poor guy and they ruined his life. And I'm not, absolving him of responsibility for his personal life. But what the U.S. Attorney's Office did to him and the rebuke that the federal judge gave to the U.S. Attorney's Office once that case was decided was something that I've rarely heard come down from a judge. And Andrew Gillum was railroaded, and he was a dynamic, exciting candidate. It was great.
Almost won.
Yes,
almost.
What, 20,000, 22,000?
I think it was. I think I looked up like 34,000.
34,000,
which is nothing in the state of Florida.
Right, in a state of 22 million people.
Yeah, that's nothing.
That was, and there were, what a great, and it's so weird to think that was so close, that this was a 50-50, this was a purple state, and we had 6 amazing candidates for governor in the Democratic primary then. I mean, we had there was a gentleman who was the mayor from Miami Beach, Gwen Graham, Andrew Gillum, the gentleman from Orlando, I can't remember. It was to go to those debates, and Andrew, and see the depth that we had in this party, and then Nikki Fried winning the agriculture race, to go from there to where we are today. That we are in. I mean, this district was a 40-60, 43-58 district,
a little closer.
And since then, it's gone to 30-70. This state has really turned, and we need to run good candidates in all the races in this state. We need to contest races, and we need to run good candidates, and we need to not beat them up. It's not Kamala Harris's fault she lost. She did everything in her power to win. It's not Hillary Clinton's fault she lost. She did everything in her power to win. But we praise them one day, and then the day after the election, it's like, I can't believe she.
It's
like, whoa, these are brilliant candidates.
Yeah. What do you think? Because that's something that I noticed, you know, because I'm so young, obviously, like 2016 kind of brought the attention to me, right? Because I was
Just you're trying to pay for your sponsor here.
right. I was
I
like,
told you to peel those labels.
I would have just turned, I would be about to turn 16 when Trump was elected. So naturally, that,
Yeah.
how like explosive that was. And
Right, sure.
remembering how Florida was right there as one of those swing states, and now it's redder than Texas, just like kind of you mentioned. What
Crazy.
happened? I mean, you're more into the politics of Florida. What went wrong, I guess, or what?
I mean, did
Democrats-
everybody just move here?
Yeah.
Or what? Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
confused.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Why did it go
a
so
ton of
red
people moved here, obviously,
since
but
2018?
it would be shocking to me to think it went from like a 1-point state to a nearly 16 for Republicans just because people moved here. So what's your take on that? Your assessment?
Sure. I think there are probably three things. First thing is that more than many other states, Florida is a fixed income state,
Mhm.
right? Because if you're retired, you're on a fixed income.
Yeah.
And if you're someone who's on a fixed income, you're on a fixed income.
Yeah.
If you're a student, you're on a fixed income.
Mhm.
You know, so the population here, you know, a big percentage is on a fixed income. And so the smallest price changes mean a big difference
Oh, yeah.
here because you don't have an opportunity to make more money.
Yeah.
You know, in other states, you have an opportunity to make more money if prices go up.
Yep.
Right.
But not here.
Yep.
You have competition. You can move across the street. You can get a better paying job at another place. But that's not really our economy here in Florida.
Mhm.
It's a lot of service industry, and it's not the type of thing where you can go get a raise across the street.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing is people are on a fixed income. They're easily scared.
Yeah.
And they should be because there's a very, and costs are going up like insurance,
Mhm.
like car insurance,
So yeah.
healthcare costs, et cetera.
Mhm.
So that's the first thing that makes us more conservative just generally.
Yeah.
Because people are economically conservative.
Mhm.
Second thing is, and you can't dismiss this, is the COVID response.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
we had a very different response to COVID here than they did in other states. And I think that it was not clearly explained that, I'll give you an example. Like my kids went to school here,
Mhm.
and a lot of the school buildings here, you have buildings that are connected by covered walkways.
Yep.
And the lockers are outside. And to generalize, like, we're not all in the same room sneezing on each other. And up north, if you're in a place like Boston, or I have a brother who's an inner city school teacher,
Mhm.
you know, kids they go from a bus into a building and they don't leave that building
Mhm.
for 8 hours.
Mhm.
And they're in there in that incubator
Yeah.
Yeah.
all day long. And
You can't
so-
open a window.
Nope.
Right.
No.
And you can't open windows, and the schools are 3 stories tall or 4 stories tall.
Sure.
And so you can't open windows up in them, et cetera.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there's no outdoor recess because you're in a northern inner city. So, you know, of course we had a different response to COVID
Mhm.
than northern cities did. And it was, you know, we were called heretics and things like that for the way that we were operating down here.
Mhm.
But it's a different environment, and we saw that COVID seemed to be affected by heat as well. The spread of it. And I'm going to try to spread any health information here, but
Yeah.
so the COVID response that we had here was different because we had different surroundings, but it became a political issue, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
that it was a conservative response, a response from the right, and that was the
Mm.
right way, and that should have been the prescription for the whole country.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I think that definitely helped make it more of a red-leaning state because as the ridiculous signs that Ron DeSantis put up, we're the free state of Florida.
Mhm.
And
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that the COVID response reinforced that kind of
Okay.
a Yellowstone-esque, you know, we are the free state of Florida. in
Yeah.
respect, live free or die. We became
Exactly.
the Southern live free or die state,
And so that helped to attract
literally.
It attract people.
attract some voters to the our side. So what would be the third thing then?
The third thing is Trumpism.
Yeah.
And
okay, sure.
you know what we always come into conflict with as Democrats, which is that the Republicans offer simple answers to complex problems, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
you know, stop, make immigration illegal, make them, no one can speak Spanish, deport people, rah, 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 rah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they come up with lower prices,
Yeah.
just
Just say things.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. but very
Right.
simple answers to complex questions. Where Democrats, we get into the weeds on things, and we really actually, they tear down bridges, we build bridges. And we all know it's harder to build a bridge than to tear one down.
Obviously, yeah.
And so, they're luckier than us in a way. They're not lucky because they have to be Republicans, but they're luckier than us because they're not coming up with the solutions.
Right.
They're just coming up with the blame.
Yeah.
And it's, when everybody is walking around wearing the same sports jersey and you're the one kid in school who's wearing the opposite team,
Right.
it grinds you down. And when you have loss after loss in this state, when you have a weak Democratic bench, when you're in a 30-70 district, when people are driving around in pickup trucks, honking their horns and flying Trump flags,
Oh, yeah.
it makes it easier for people to go to that side, to cheer for that
it's
side.
the winning
'Cause it's the
team.
winning team, and
Exactly.
everybody wants to feel good being on the winning team.
Bandwagon effect a
Yeah,
little
bandwagon
bit
Peer
there.
effect.
pressure, bandwagon effect, et cetera.
Yeah.
And
I
then
get it.
when you add into it the media infrastructure here, which really it's all conservative talk radio. There's not, because now NPR is not advocacy radio the same way that conservative talk radio is.
Right.
And so it's not as sticky or addictive as conservative talk radio is. And so, we're fighting an uphill battle in terms of getting the news out and getting our nuanced arguments out.
Mhm.
But we do have, and also, because we're the idea party, some of those ideas don't work. Some of them are bad because we're the
Sure.
ones who are throwing out 20 ideas.
We have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
They have 4 ideas, right? They
Yeah.
have 4 ideas: cut taxes on the wealthy, shut borders, and kick people off government health care.
No.
Right.
That's the whole plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy for them to message that. And we have much more nuanced arguments.
So I understand his tack. It makes sense. And
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So he's saying we're heavy R,
For sure.
but there's going to be an R candidate who's pretty unlikable, and R's probably aren't going to be eager to vote for him.
Hmm.
So who do we have on the D side that we'll consider this time, because this R candidate is
Mhm.
a bad one? He's making a case for, look, I'm a reasonable Democrat, kind of, right?
Yep.
As opposed to, I've got some very strong, bold ideas in a progressive way that might turn some of those voters off.
Yeah.
So that makes him more electable in the general election against Randy Fine, right? Like,
Yep.
That's the thought, right? Am I kind of...
Yeah, it's a backhanded compliment to me, but it's like
Okay. I don't mean it to be.
Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the very good.
Yeah.
I mean,
I see that.
I'm
a
a
lot,
very
yeah.
good candidate,
Yeah.
and if you're a Democrat and you don't agree with everything I say, that's good.
Yeah.
Because that means that an NPA or a Republican might agree with some of those things.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
right?
like-
that's. I mean, if
And that's the only way we win. It's the
Yeah,
only way we win in
not-
a 30-70 district.
Yeah, not putting off all 70%.
right,
You got to be appealing
Right.
to a percentage of the 70.
right. Who's more electable? It really is. The question.
Yeah,
Look,
that's the
this is a
battle.
primary, right? And it's really interesting to get to meet 2 men that I want them both to be in Washington. Either one.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the truth. Please, one of you get there.
That's a sign of a healthy party.
Okay,
having
good.
great candidates. I mean, think
Okay,
about
right.
think about
Okay,
Kamala,
that's a good point.
think about if there had been a primary this summer,
Yeah.
Kamala versus Gretchen Whitmer versus
Right.
Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
I mean, what a bounty that would have been.
Sure.
To pick between those
Yeah.
candidates.
Sure.
So yeah, I love that this is a hard choice. I love that our party is strong enough that you got
Yeah.
two good candidates
That
to
is
pick between.
That is a good way to look at it.
right?
Yeah. If the party's,
I don't want to. I don't
Yeah,
want
there's
to run against
optimism
the
there.
bad. I want the bad candidates to be on the Republican side.
Yeah.
I
'Cause
didn't
what's
mean to
gonna mo-
backhand compliment you, by the way. I
Yeah.
mean, I meant to.
I'll take all
I'm-
compliments.
I mean,
Backhand and
I meant it to be
otherwise.
a fronthand one, but yeah, just like I told Josh last night, I have a little more money in the bank. Like maybe I should be voting R, so I'll get to keep more of my money, right? But
Yeah.
no, I'm a Dem. Although I did love Bernie, I did love Bernie. So, but there hasn't been a progressive otherwise. Maybe AOC a little bit.
This
but
ain't Vermont. 6th district
Right.
ain't Vermont, you know?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Good
yeah,
point.
right.
Yeah, Bernie is great for America. He's great in Vermont. AOC is great for America. She's great in New York City. But this is Central Florida. This is we're in Ocala right now.
Yeah, it's
So,
a different area.
Right. So there's
Yeah.
there's a practicality that is appealing to somebody like me, I guess is what I'm saying.
Look, people not to interrupt, but like
go ahead.
You know, Democrats are. I mean, November hurt, and
Right.
you know the people. You know, many of the people we're talking to are hardcore Dems who, I mean, they laid it out in November for Kamala, and they really thought she was going to win,
Mhm.
and they're devastated. And for them to pick it back up in January and be out there holding signs for us in this yucky weather, this
Yeah.
rain, and this stuff, I mean, they're going to be out at the polls this on Saturday. They're going to be manning tables at the polls for both candidates.
Mhm.
And it is really remarkable, you know, the strength of the Democratic Party. And the least we can do is be, you know, two good candidates for them and give them something. And the other thing is, you know, I've said this before, though, even though it was, you know, the worst of times in November, obviously with Kamala losing and Trump winning, you know, in some ways it was the best of times in that 57% of the voters in Florida, you know, voted in favor of a constitutional amendment enshrining, you know, women's health rights, abortion rights in our Constitution.
Right.
And, you know, 57% constitutes a landslide in today's
In any other type of vote.
yeah,
Right.
in any type of vote in today's polarized world.
Yeah.
So I think that is first thing, it's huge cause for optimism and a victory, even though it didn't hit the 60% threshold. That is a clear victory and a mandate to Republican and Democratic officials that that's what matters to more than half of the voters in Florida, clearly.
Agree.
And the second thing is that shows me that there are moderate Republicans who will vote for a issue which is really a moderate Democratic issue, which is abortion rights. That is not like some crazy left issue. That is a moderate Democrat issue.
I'd agree.
So that is what sort of fuels me is that, you know, we're not turning this 30-70 district blue in 60 days. And we are not going to have some unbelievably groundswell of blue voters come out in that. But there are moderate Republicans out there who have common sense. And the Republicans are in all probability going to run this dumpster fire of a candidate who does not live here, has no interest in this district, no knowledge of this district, lied to his constituents when he said, if you elect me to state Senate, I will serve. And then a month after he was elected, he threw his hat in for Congress. This Randy Fine got character. So I think that this is a no BS district, the 6th district. I think that people are going to see this guy's BS and they're going to say, what's the alternative? And I would like to be that alternative.
When is voting? Let's get that. I want to make sure that everybody knows.
Sure.
So
Voting
break it down.
by mail is already happening.
Wow.
If you requested an absentee ballot, you already could have voted in this primary. Saturday, the voting starts at early voting locations. So it's only a couple of locations in each county, and it varies. Like I think Marion County has 7 early voting spots, but Volusia only has 2, and I think not in downtown Daytona.
interesting.
So St. Johns County has 2. So it varies from district to district. And then election day is Tuesday the 28th. So that's what, 11 days from now, maybe? That we will find out which one of us is going to take on the Republican nominee. It's a sprint. It's exciting. It is, you know, if you like democracy, you follow this.
Yeah.
You know, this has been fun. This last 10 days is going to be fun.
Yeah.
And I've, you know, made a plea with a League of Women Voters event we did the other day to really put the Republicans on the hook that they have to debate us. And it's up to the public to say that. I mean, you don't know, Republican or Democrat, you don't know these candidates as well as you should. And there ought to be debates. And we need the institutions in this district. We need the colleges, the universities, the chambers of commerce, League of Women Voters. We need them to put pressure on the Republicans that there have to be debates in the next 60 days.
Should we be trying to get him on?
Who?
Randy Fine?
To debate him here?
Well, even just to come to us to talk first, and then, yeah, for sure, whoever wins the primary.
He's on record as saying the primary, once he wins the primary, it's over. I mean, I suspect that
Really?
Wow.
this is what their campaign is going to be. They are going to get Donald Trump to record a 15-second spot. He's going to say, "This is Donald Trump. My guy Randy Fine needs you, and I need you. You need to send him to Washington. Be a good MAGA be a good MAGA Republican. He's a MAGA Republican. I need him. Send him and buy my cologne."
And that's
That is they're going to run that on. They're going to run that on talk radio.
Yep.
And that's it. That's all the
that's the
campaign they're
campaign.
going to do.
Yep.
They are not going to mention our names, whichever one of Josh or my name. They won't even mention our name. And they will take their 70-30 advantage, and they will just
Be lazy about
They
it.
will hide for 60 days and rely on the fact that a 15-second spot from the president will get turnout and they'll win the race. That's what it's going to be.
So then, yeah, we should definitely try to get him on.
Yeah.
Yeah. To
I mean, if you think about it, like if the plan
he's
is
forced-
to kind of to hide and to release the Trump message and just let that do the talking and let that do the campaigning, then anybody that gets him to talk about anything on
For
camera
5
at
minutes.
all is a victory.
Yeah.
So we should try it anyway. But
And I apologize for my Trump impression. That's not something I practice. I don't want to scare people with that. So, that was not a very good impression. Someone could do that better, but that's not something I want to perfect.
how about after you win the primary, we would love to have you back on to talk about Randy Fine.
I would like to come back, win or lose.
Good.
I'd like to come back as the winner, but I am going to support the Democratic, whoever the Democratic nominee is, because it's important.
Agreed.
I hope it's me. I expect it will be me, and I believe that I am the right candidate, and that I live in this district. I know this district, and I have the moderate policies that can win in this district. But I am a Democrat. I'm a loyal Democrat. I'm going to support whoever our candidate is.
That's the spirit.
love it.
Okay, that's a wrap. It's really good work.
You guys are awesome. This is great.
Thank you. Yeah, good. It was fun, right? It's like